Hello everyone, my name is Sylvia Flores and I will be your host for this program. My guest today is Chris DiMaggio. Chris brings to divorcing couples, as a mediator, a unique style and methods that are both innovative and efficient for separating couples. Chris saves the couples resources in time and money and in stabilizing the mental health of children. He removes the sting of litigating and contesting, affecting the future of your family. Doesn't that make sense? Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. Chris, how did you get to become a mediator?
Well, I had to be divorced first to discover what it would be like, Sylvia. It took a very bad divorce in order to discover that the laws were bad. When I looked at them, I did some investigations and I discovered, well, this couldn't be right for any family. And I stayed with it. It became a passion for me, and that's how it went from there. I just kept looking and chasing down the law and seeing what was ineffective about it, what was right and what was wrong. And I'm just doing what some people do, try to change what is not working.
So having gone through it yourself, you wanted to help other people to go through the process in a more agreeable manner.
Yeah, it was so egregious to me. I felt that I didn't want one more person to go through what I went through.
Good point. Do you need special training? Is there an organization that you're part of?
Yeah, I'm part of the New York State Council on Divorce Mediation, and I also was a member of NYSDRA, which is the New York State Dispute Resolution Association. They do mostly businesses, but as a divorce mediator, I belong to the divorce mediation group, and I've been with them for 10 years now.
Wow. I'm sure that's very helpful.
It is.
Tell us about your work on the Family Law Task Force.
Okay, yeah, the task force was something that I did before I became a mediator, which helped me. I had gotten the divorce and discovered what was going on, and then I was invited to be a member as a task force because I kept on producing works and articles that showed the ineffectiveness of being divorced in court. And the task force devoted itself to creating a place where mediation become a normal place rather than in New York. It's not really normal. It's very hard to find mediators in New York. Even though we've been an organization for 20 years, a lot of people want to litigate rather than mediate. So I helped look at how other states mediated so that I can make it a regular part of New York. Of course, it's been an uphill battle, but I'm still working on that.
That's an admirable thing to do because there are a lot of people that need help, unfortunately.
Yeah, you bet.
So different states differ in accepting mediation?
Yeah, New York State, as I mentioned a moment ago, doesn't really have a mediation law, but many states have mediation laws in effect where you have to mediate before you litigate. And there's a right to due process in law that causes us to face a lawyer as well, have that opportunity to call on a lawyer if we need one. But most states, once they've become associated with how easy it is and how effective mediation can be in a divorce, that word has been passed along, and other states are doing it more regularly now. And there are even some countries now who are doing it and they don't litigate anymore. Divorce, I'm talking about.
Really? Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely a movement whose time is now.
That's a very positive shift and a welcome one for many people, I'm sure. What is the mediator's role actually for the divorcing couple?
We are what they call a neutral third party. We keep ourselves out of discussion in a major way. We listen and we facilitate that which the couple wants. The way that I use, the language that I use to describe that is that if the couple decides that they want to create something, they make it their law. So when they're divorced, they're Mr. and Mrs. Smith law for their family. So they create everything that's within it. Instead of going to court and having an attorney protect you, quote unquote protect,
right.
Rarely works out that way, and lose that opportunity, lose your power and lose your ability to make a decision because the court's forcing you to do that. In a mediation, you get the chance to create your own existence. And who wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept.
It has to be that way.
Do the courts frown on the use of a mediator in any way?
Originally they did. Most states that want their lawyers to make money will frown on mediation.
That's unfortunate, but true.
Yeah, they're going to keep their distance from mediators because mediation is actually the opposite of litigation. Litigation, you're protected by somebody and forced to do what they want you. They even want you to shut up in court, for instance. Whereas mediators encourage conversation so we can help them find a path to come to solution.
As in most things, communication is the key.
Yeah, you bet.
Especially if you want a good result.
So many states don't have it completely enforced yet. Some have it mandatory, where you have to mediate. There's about 18 states that expect that you you mediate before you litigate.
Wow.
That you actually get a ticket, like, for instance, if you go to court, they'd say, did you see a mediator yet? And if you said no, they'd send you right back home and go find a mediator, because the solutions are equitable for a couple in a far easier path when they're developing it themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you need special permission from the courts to go that route in a state that doesn't expect mediation?
Yeah, correct. In a state that doesn't really have it in place, you would need permission from the courts. The courts will award a certain mediation group opportunity to mediate with a couple. They'll recommend them, and they'll refer out a case that could be mediated rather than litigated. So yeah, in some states it's like that. That's not the norm, but it is so still.
But generally you can count on a resource that you can go to.
Right, in most other states, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What is a third-party neutral, and how will it help a couple in transition?
Well, by not becoming a part of protecting either client, you can be a good listener, a quality listener, as the third person in the room in the conversation. Even though we're not doing all that much talking ordinarily, we're listening primarily. We're affecting change by being the listener. Sometimes the unique experience a mediator has is that the couple, while they're talking, you can discover they know that that third person's in the room, and their language changes more towards facilitation automatically. It's magic.
Wow.
It's magic. People who are angry in the first session, ordinarily, it's about the dropout ratio is a lot higher in the first session because they're not accustomed to not being told what to do. In mediation, you're not being told what to do.
Right. So people have to more or less find their way.
They have to find their way. So the first session is sometimes sloppy. But after you get to that first session, you're in the second session, people start to get the feeling, oh, that's it, I can make my own choices.
It's empowering, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's empowering, it's self-empowering. And if there's a trip in the wire and they don't really become successful at it, I help them through that little trip stage by showing that the communication that they had was still valuable.
Right.
And that it wasn't a waste of time to say what they said. And if they're angry, you let them be angry a little bit. It's okay. People do yell at each other in mediation. Happens.
But the third party is objective because they can see the situation from a perspective that's
I left
not
that
emotional.
out. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
It's not emotional, so they,
Yeah, they're not a part of the action, so they can really be a quality person as a neutral third listener.
Yeah, that can only be a positive thing. So what experience exactly do you bring to the mediation table in your practice?
The good thing about my experience is maybe a little bit beyond. Most mediators don't have, matter of fact, I think all mediators don't have the same experience I had because it's my own. But I don't know of any other mediator that worked on task force like I did for 3 years. That's a lot of studying about mediation. This was before I became a mediator, so it is unique. I am unique in that regard. To create a place where people want to mediate in a state where they didn't have it before, like in New York.
Right.
This was a good place to have it. But as a business owner, I own businesses, and I've been a teacher at one time, and I've got a lot of experience on how to bring information to somebody when they need to. So having that in the back of my head at all times, as a former teacher, is a helpful thing.
Excellent. That foundation allows you to give good advice to people.
Right.
You've been immersed in it.
I have good ground information to get through a lot of things, including as the business owner that I've been for quite a while. Allows me to know what other people go through in their businesses and makes it easier for me to see what's going on in their business world, which some people have a weakness on, and I help them through that weakness stage.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does someone reach you if they need your services?
Well, they go to the website, www.fitmediation.com, or the phones we have are 631-421-8188 or 631-291-2434. Those are the phone contacts.
Okay, excellent. Well, I hope that people will use that number and call you.
Yes, I do too.
Finally, what is your dream in the world of mediation?
The dream that I have is what I've been working on in the task force, and that is to make mediation a mandatory position for a divorcing couple. Who would want to take the power that they have within their family and suddenly throw it to a judge and say, okay, it's time for you, judge, to make a decision on my life?
Exactly.
And to tell the kids that you now have to live in the world where that decision, that third other person who's going to force you into a position, and they have to live by that. So that it creates a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of loss of power. There's also no information that the judge can give them to help them going forward, whereas in mediation, our parenting plans set up in motion that which they can help themselves with. Where in court, you're set free with a custodial and non-custodial position. You're forced to pay money. It's a out of control scenario when you litigate a divorce.
It drains everybody of resources and time and energy.
Sure. We want to take the power away from a system that doesn't advantage the family. If you have a family and you are going to court, I can tell you, you are making a critical mistake. If you have a serious problem in your family and you wish to have a solution, see your family or friends first, and sometimes you don't want to see your family, but maybe you want to see your friends, and sometimes you want to see your family and not your friends, but you make that choice to have it be out of a system. Secondarily, then you would go see a mediator. If things really get out of hand where you feel like divorce might be imminent, then you see a mediator. And if you notice there's silence in my voice and not recommending an attorney.
Yes.
Because that's the last resort, and that resort would only be one where you're going to lose. So it's not a choice that I recommend.
Far better to have a hand in creating your own reality, because the divorcing couple, the reality is going to be what they're going to walk into as a result.
You know your own kids. You know what they want.
Right.
You know your soon-to-be ex has a certain need. You know what that is, and when you know what that is, it helps you make that person go forward better, which is going to make the kids view that you have worked something out better, so they're going to say, well, geez, mom and dad, they're separated, they're heading for divorce, but they certainly do know how to work things out.
Which is a good tool
they
for
can cooperate.
Their conflict resolution as adults, too.
Absolutely. It's a training field for them. No relationship is perfect. There'll be arguments and there'll be fights between every family. But the beauty of mediation is that it allows you to create resolution. It allows you to have a base place to go for settlement within your own family, not have somebody else force it upon you.
Right.
You were divorced. What happened in your divorce?
I was and am still.
I'm still divorced? Well, that's good. Did you have a comfortable divorce? Did you hire attorneys? What did you do?
We did hire attorneys. It was somewhat contentious. There were other legal issues involved that didn't involve me. So those all came into play and kind of muddied the waters a little bit. But it actually made the process go along a little faster because of those other issues. I would say we probably could have done better with a mediator working on our behalf, because it would have cut down on the arguing about who was going to have what. When you had the problem that you had you ever considered that having someone else hear the problem from your voice and then having him say what he had to say and hearing it from his voice might have changed how that went? I think so. I think, when you have a marriage, two people started something together, and when dissolution comes about, those two same people should be planning it together. And I think that the common core of your relationship and the basic respect you should have for your spouse and vice versa should facilitate that process in some way. And I think with a mediation, it might have gone a little bit more smoothly. You
had a legal issue which maybe, apparently, having an attorney didn't hurt?
Right.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Yeah. Ordinarily, if people think of their divorce as legal, it, in a sense, is because when you sign your certificate of marriage, you're giving them permission to come back and get you at some point. But you don't need to get out of it with an attorney. You don't really need to get into it with an attorney. You didn't get divorced with an attorney over your shoulder, married, I'm sorry, with an attorney over your shoulder.
Right.
So you have an emotional issue. Divorce is about relationships, and relationships can't be adjudicated. It doesn't make any sense for me to even suggest to anybody that they should see an attorney because they're having a fight or an argument in the kitchen about where the toothpaste capper went or whatever the fight may be about.
It's true. And most people don't even consider that they can go another route, because the common perception is what you hear about in the media and from your friends and family.
See, that's the big obstacle.
Yes, and unless you get the message out that there is an alternative, people aren't aware of it and they can't avail themselves of it.
Right, there's a big stone wall up in New York and in the administration at the state level, and the party that's been in charge has been in charge in New York for 80 years, so they want, and their trial lawyers So they want to keep it there, so they're not recommending mediation. At the expense of the dysfunction of children. Everyone should know that the state is holding us up and creating, or advancing, certainly at least, more dysfunction in our children simply because they won't give up the fact that divorcing in court is a mistake.
That is obvious, and it's shameful.
Yeah.
And I will say to you that that's one of the reasons why I stayed married as long as I did, 27 years, because I was afraid to go through the process when my children were of an age that custody would become an issue.
That is a good idea. I don't know if you realize that. Now, it may have been painful for you to live that long in that relationship.
Painful.
But staying together for the sake of the kids, I think, is it was a noble idea. It used to be a normal idea.
Used to be, yes.
People don't seem to be able to think of that anymore. They seem to want to get rid of it. It's a throwaway society, so they want to dump the old hag or the old man in favor of some younger person, maybe to think that to revive their lives. But what they don't recognize is that if they have children, that's something that will hamper their growth. It'll stop them from, the kids that is, from developing a more normal path. It appears to be that the dysfunction that develops in children is a continual, and it's an advancing situation where if you go to school nowadays and see the kids all in one room and ask them whose parents are divorced, you get halfway or slightly more than half of them, whereas
right.
when I was a kid,
it was much less.
I don't know of anybody who was divorced.
Right.
So, our change of attitude is we're living in a divorce culture. And a divorce culture allows things to go forward that shouldn't. And now you have a society living in a divorce culture, which is going to monopolize what we do every single day. You're going to be involved with divorced kids everywhere. So we've started this negative trend, and the only way I think that we can reverse it is to give it power back to the family and let them make the decisions in their divorce. Make sense?
Well, I think that people have to realize that, well, my approach to marriage was I made a commitment. I made a promise, and I tried my best to keep it. You also make a commitment to children when you bring them into this world, to do the best you can for them and to provide a safe home and a happy, harmonious home. And when you can't provide that anymore, I think you owe it to them to have a happy, harmonious separation and then dissolution.
Right. Show them that you're working through your problem would help.
Right.
So that the kids see that you're not completely breaking down and you're not overly angry or unable to focus and unable to handle your own situation.
Exactly.
It lets them see you in a confronting manner that maybe they didn't see you in before. It's a very real problem, but you're not losing your noodle over it.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So you have, how old are your kids?
My children are 28 and 29.
Okay, so they're not kids anymore.
No, and
well,
they weren't when I divorced either. They
right.
were already grown and out of the house on their own.
Well, you did the right thing. That's what I was saying before. I mean, I think more.
They would beg to differ.
They would beg to differ?
Yeah. It's funny when you get the child's perspective as an adult.
Is it always the right way? Is it good to believe that they were right?
I think that they don't know the opposite side of the coin, so
right.
they can't really make a determination that's fair.
That's
as far
right.
As
that's exactly right.
What might have happened.
I think that all too often when we look at our kids through divorce, we think that because of what they say, that's how they feel, and how they feel is what they mean, and what they mean and what they feel and what they say are all the same thing. They're solid on that viewpoint. It turns out that that's not true from all the studies I've seen. They want something to happen. They'll create an environment that will work in.
Right.
They'll adjust their belief system. They'll move their minds around to, I don't know if I'm making it clear, but they'll make themselves work in a bad scenario. They'll
right.
make something happen that works for them.
Children learn to be adaptable because they want their environment to be agreeable.
Right.
And even as adults, grown children will have a different perspective at different times about the way they were raised. Younger children don't have the perspective. You get
two kids in the same family with totally
right.
different viewpoints,
right.
and it'll mess up themselves.
And it's tough for the younger children to deal with that.
Well, I always say that if you're going to divorce, go to a mediator because you don't want to give up your power.
You've been watching FIT, the program that brings you behind the scenes of our divorce culture. We ask that you remember these two cultural facts. First, that there are more of you that have divorced than have not. And second, there are more children living with step-parents than their own two biological parents. We are living in the middle of a sea change in our society, and we are your wake-up call. We stay ahead of the curve so you don't have an accident. Thank you for watching.